Oop. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. I am your host, Al Richards. And before we introduce our guest, I am just beyond honored to say thank you to Emergo Academy, who is our sponsor of The Other Side of Addiction. Emergo Academy, this isn't just another program, it's a life-changing brain first approach to recovery. I've personally taken this training. As you guys know, I've talked about it many times with Dave and Susan Kenny, and it's completely transformed the way I understand myself, my past, and my healing. Even if you're not looking at becoming a certified crisis and recovery coach, the brain first approach will actually shift how you see addiction, behavior, and even your own everyday choices. So if you're ready to think differently about recovery and mostly about life, check out Emergo Academy. That's EMERGO Academy.com. And I am honored to I'm trying to get over here in another screen. I am honored to introduce our guest today for a second time. She was on the show 2.5, 3 years ago. Amber Rabold, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're packed with kids and business and coaching and everything. And today we're going to be talking about After the Storm. And as we get into the show, you guys will understand why we have that title, After the Storm, because basically it's talking about life, right? That's what we're going to talk about today. So, Amber, again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me for a second time. Thank you.
Absolutely. I really enjoy guests that come on again after a couple of years and just talk about where life is at for them right now. And it's so cool to hear that when we finally make that decision in our life to get away from our old life and make something better of it, where things go. We have so many blessings that come into our life. However, life still doesn't stop, right? And guests hear me say I like to call them shit balls. Life just throws shit balls at us all the time. Sometimes we dodge them, other times it smacks us straight in the face. However, as we've grown, we have a lot more tools in our pouch that help us get through a lot of things. Have you found that out for yourself?
No, I really have. So the last time I was on your show, life, there was a lot of things that were the same. But I was really, really hyper focused on recovery and like staying abstinent and step work because my route to recovery is AA. I work Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step program. So I was just really focused on that. I believe I had just got done doing peer support, working in the recovery field. I found out it wasn't for me. There's just been a lot of things that have changed since then. And yeah, I really love this After the Storm because what happens when you put down the drink, the drugs, and you start living, you know? It's drugs and alcohol isn't really part of the story for me at this point. There's just a lot more to life. Yeah, so what do you do after you put the drink and drugs down? What is life like then, dealing with life on life's terms, completely sober?
Yeah, I mean, really, because you have to change your whole outlook on things, right? Because when we get these challenges that come after us, which they do constantly, that's just how life is. Our old self goes to where we don't want to sit in our feelings. We don't trust them, we don't like them. So what do? We run to something to numb them, whether it's drugs, alcohol, eating, porn, work, gambling, gaming, whatever it may be. We just don't want to sit in these emotions when really, and at least it has been for me, and not sure on you. I don't want to speak for you. I have found learning how to sit in my emotions has been one of my best blessings, my biggest blessings, because I've been able to figure things out so much differently and learn the lesson behind them, right?
I couldn't agree with you more. I am currently a life coach, and that is one of the things that my own life coach taught me and that I implement when coaching others is learning to sit with the tough emotions. So like if you think about it in terminologies of like how long the average human lives, like a lifespan, like I believe it's somewhere around 75. So if you just say half of that, you're going to be happy, joyous, peaceful. And then the other half of that, you're going to be frustrated, angry, sad, depressed. It makes sense that we would sit with or at least learn to be semi-comfortable sitting in those feelings because you're going to feel those half of your lifespan. But we tend to run away. And in the coaching field, we call it buffering, whether that looks like eating, mindless scrolling on social media. Some of us are promiscuous, some of us gamble, some of us shop. Me, I'm a shopper. That I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But yes, I completely agree with you. We should definitely get used to sitting in those feelings. We love to sit with the happy ones. We love it. But when they're not so happy, we tend to isolate and run away. We
Yeah.
want to ice those feelings out. But us running away is not the solution. It's not a permanent solution anyway.
No,
And it
it's
definitely,
it's definitely not because our subconscious mind is there to protect us and it ends up bringing those feelings back to us, right? I like to say with a lot of my training that I've taken is our subconscious is there to protect us, but in really it does us more harm than it does protect us because when we've reacted a certain way when something happens to our life, and if something similar comes, our brain goes, oh, this is how we handled it before. So I'm here to protect you, right? This is what we need to do. So we're not feeling this way. And then we go back to these old behaviors. And it is like this, like the title says, after the storm, it is so hard to go, what do I do now? Now that I'm through this, I got myself through it. Now what the hell do I do? And that's when life really starts changing. And I think also, at least for me, that's when I started seeing more light. I've shared many times with a lot of guests and even people that I've talked to is our greatest light comes through the greatest darkness. And once we can learn how to get through that, it's amazing what's on the other side for us.
it is. And it took me a while to find this out, but it's amazing the amount of depth of deep despair that I will sit with to stay comfortable. That has shocked me to my core in sobriety. Um, like I got sober. I'm just gonna backtrack a little bit and just give some of my experience. I got sober in 2020. Valentine's Day, I just celebrated 6 years of sobriety. My drug of choice was crack, alcohol. I did heroin. I did everything though. Yeah, and pretty much what used to take me months what used to take me months to lose my home, my children, my spouse, my money, my dignity, took a matter of 3 days this last time around, and it scared me straight. I've been using since I was about nine something. I was always using something. Started out like puffing glue, smoking pot, that led to drinking, and yada 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 as the story goes. I'm sure everybody knows and can relate to that in some way. But what I've noticed now is that it's amazing how my brain still wants to kill me some days. My brain, it's crazy to me. Um, the longer I get away, the longer I see that with any pattern or any type of human behavior, you'll always iterate. You know, things will always pop back up, but it's how you deal with those things. You know what I mean? Just like being an addict, being an alcoholic, I'm always going to have thoughts of, hey, that sounds good, or it's summer, it's a hot day, I'd like to have a beer. Thank you. Wish I could, but I can't because it'll iterate. When I
Mhm.
first started getting sober, it was 17 times a day. I'm thinking about smoking crack. I'm thinking about drinking. I'm thinking about running away from this treatment center. I'm thinking about just completely self-sabotaging, burning my life to the ground. And I thought about that 80 times a day. Sometimes it was 83 times a day, And as I got more sober, it iterated less and less. It was like this big cylinder. It iterated a lot at the beginning and it's gotten less and less as I've, chronologically aged, so to speak, and sobriety. So what I can say though is I'm starting to see that there's new levels unlocking, and it boggles me because I didn't get the opportunities that a lot of people, I robbed myself of those opportunities, those learning opportunities, relationships, paying bills, paying taxes, driving, jury duty. I literally had jury duty and sobriety, and I was like, what? Like it just going to graduations, going to baby showers, going to weddings, like these were all things I had no experience on because if it wasn't a bottle or a bag, I didn't go to it and I didn't finish it. I didn't go out to eat. I didn't go shopping. I didn't have relationships with my family and friends. I didn't have family and friends. They'd all cut me off. So having all these new experiences is just, it's wild, it's beautiful, it's scary, it's overstimulating at times. And it's just like, whew, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. It reminds me of like, I don't know if you ever watched any like zombie films or like any zombie like shows. Like I'm thinking particularly of The Walking Dead.
Okay.
Season one, two, and three. It's all about zombies. It's all about survival and, slaying the zombies. And as the seasons progress, it's about rebuilding civilization as we know it. And that's the way that I felt about addiction. At first I'm just slaying these zombies. I'm just trying to make it out alive. And once all the zombies are like, for the most part, they're pretty much gone. I've done enough work to where I've cleared out a lot of dirt and a lot of old stuff. But now it's like we're rebuilding civilization here and my head and my brain and my humanity and getting it back and learning how to be a productive member of society. And it's been a process. It really has.
Yeah.
Doesn't come.
I love how you put that. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just
Go
love
ahead.
that because I'm picturing it in my head going, I mean, I've not watched a lot of The Walking Dead, but I have seen some of the series and I'm like, my gosh, that is a great way of putting it, because we are, right? We're slaying so many monsters or zombies, however you put it, just to get to a point where we can take a breath, finally take a breath and go, holy cow, now what? Where do I start taking this from here? And it's one
Yeah,
step at a time, right?
literally. And it's reaching for help. I was
Mhm.
too proud. I knew everything back in the day. I was too proud and knew everything. I mean, maybe that program worked for you. Maybe AA worked for you. Maybe religion and having a higher power worked for you. But I'm me. And I had to figure it out. I had to find out for myself because I used to think I was special, unique, and different. And AA worked for you, and that's fine, good for you, but that's just not me. I'm different. I'm special. I'm unique. I don't need this. I don't need that. I don't need treatment. I don't need that. It took a lot of falling down for me to to get some humility. And what I'm realizing now is that need for humility doesn't go away. I have the way my brain is set up is different. I it's set up differently. I have an addiction. I have a disease. I really just the drugs and alcohol weren't the problem. The problem was the way my brain thinks. The drugs and alcohol were designed to numb, and they do that, and they do it well. However, I bring me everywhere I go, even in sobriety.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's what a lot of us start realizing, right? That other stuff isn't the problem, that we're actually the problem. And until we can
Mhm.
learn how to get out of our own damn way, that's when life's going to happen, and you talked about falling down lots of times before you found that humility. You know, my version of it is God puts us through the same challenges over and over and over and over till we learn the damn lesson.
Mhm.
And once we learn the lesson, then of course there's another lesson to be learned. Because I had to learn it over on my end as well, especially being in love with somebody that battled an addiction,
Mhm.
and doing a lot of things wrong, but also keeping myself stuck in a lot of things. And I had a guest on my show say once that I was addicted to her addiction. And it really is. I mean, I was addicted to her addiction, so it was taking my life along with hers. And I had a guest on about a couple months ago. Her name's Rachel, and she goes, Al, I would have rather been the addict than the loved one of an addict any day of the week, because of how hard it is to watch them battle, right? And that's exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about slaying all these damn zombies and really not even knowing which freaking direction life is going to take you. You don't know what life was. You just said that, right? You didn't know what life was like on the other side because you never really experienced it. And
Mhm.
and it's scary. Some people on the other side go, how can it be scary? Well, you've lived that way for lots of years. You haven't lived this other way that she's talking about, right? So
Yeah.
it is scary. My past wife said something to me once, Amber, that just has still stuck with me. It just really hit me hard. And that was back in the time when I'm like, why can't you just stop? Why is it so effing fucking hard for you just to not pick up a drink? And I'm on her. I'm just on her like crazy. And she's like, it's scary. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I could go to a barbecue again. I don't know if I could go to a concert again. I don't know if I could do this again because every time she did it, alcohol was involved. And she put it to me this way. What if I told you, because I love ice cream. I'm an ice cream junkie. She goes, what if I told you you could never have ice cream ever again the rest of your life? And of course, I thought about it. And then, of course, my justification was like a good addict. Well, that's different, right? But she was right.
Different and unique.
But she was right. She nailed it. She was 100% correct. And that's what a lot of individuals on the other side who have not experienced it, that's what they don't get is there are so many zombies to slay in so many different ways. And they come out of the woodwork at you and they're doing you already feel like shit about yourself.
Yeah.
And everything just compounds it, right? Especially when you're stopping, it just compounds. It's just like all this extra weight on top of you. You don't know which direction to go. And then all of a sudden the light starts opening up and you're like, huh, okay, well, some of this is good. But then, of course, life still throws those shit balls at you and you still got to figure out how to get.
Right. Well, the way that I have, maybe it's not perfect for everyone, but the way that I choose to deal with those shit balls is I really lean on my higher power and I really just do the next right thing. It's not always fun. It doesn't even feel right sometimes. It's
Mm,
still, you know, the way that my brain is set up, my brain is just designed to just pleasure, 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 dopamine, dopamine, dopamine. Um, they talk about that like when you go to treatment centers and you do any type of work on addiction, they explain the addictive brain and how different it works compared to the regular brain. And they just talk about, we have our primitive brain. That's the one that has the reward system, the one where you want to eat, reproduce, drink, breathe, sleep. And when you do that drug or that drink, my brain's different. My brain now registers this as more important than breathing, eating, sleeping, reproducing, and drinking water. So I have just, and the more I fed it that drink and that drug, the more crazier it got. So I just have that addictive brain, and my brain just always wants to seek the pleasure. You were talking about how your brain just wants to numb out. Basically, we were talking about, you had mentioned eating and shopping and pornography and all these different ways. And I think our brain is designed, our brain has not completely, that part of the brain, um the primitive brain, sorry, I have brain fog. The primitive brain part has not developed. It has not evolved to the point of like the hippocampus and the other parts of the brain like it has. So you can go on Facebook and make a post, and if somebody doesn't like that post, that primitive part of your brain thinks that there's a monster coming. Let's run back to the cave.
mhm.
Like you're still like, Australopithecus, like you still live in a cave, like you're pre-human, and it just hasn't caught up. So my first instincts in dealing with like hurt, anger, rejection, frustration, um, is to go run and hide, to go run and hide. But that frontal cortex, that part of the brain that has the logical thinking, the part where you can think about what you're thinking about, that has taught me different. And for that to be something I choose to do, I choose to listen to that now. I'm always going to have these crazy thoughts, actually. But do I choose to give myself more choices, or do I choose to run off primitive brain and emotion? And it's been hard. It's been hard to always choose that. So sometimes I have to pull in a tool before the tool. My sponsor, hey, I have these thoughts. What would you do? What sounds the wisest?
Yeah.
And then I get some feedback. And reaching for those tools sometimes it's hard, and it doesn't become second nature until you utilize it for a very long time. We're very hard learners. I find that all my friends, all of us, we all make a joke, have to do something 17,000 times before I figure out that it was the wrong way. I hear jokes like, what was it? Somebody told me a joke and they were like, what's the difference between an alcoholic and a normie? And they were like, a normie will read directions on how to put something together. An alcoholic just assumes that they can do it without direction. And like, I definitely feel that in my heart because I just instantly first thought wrong and I just want to go with it. I
Yeah.
want to go with it. And what's funny is when I do put things together, I just look at it and look at the pieces and I'm like, oh, well, this is obviously goes there. And this obviously, I always have this preconceived notion that I know everything, which is wild. So I just have to go and just get some backup. I know from experience, I have to call backup, get 8 different opinions before I make a final decision now. That is a lot of training on my brain. It took me a lot of mistakes to figure out, oh wow, I need to bounce this off somebody. And this could be the most little minute things to the biggest life choices. I've gone through a lot of different things and I just always, that's my favorite tool, I think, is just bouncing things off of someone.
Yeah. Well, and there's really nothing wrong how I see it. There's nothing wrong with you doing that, right? Because we're not able to do this alone at all.
No,
There is
no.
no way in hell because we've done it alone before.
Hmm.
By like you say, our ego kicks in and it goes, I don't give a shit. This is who I am. This is the way I handle shit, right? Because our
Hmm.
ego takes over and we're too prideful to go, yeah, I'm freaking weak and lonely right now, and I don't know how to handle what's happening in my life. So I'm handling it the best way I know how to handle it. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's great to have those tools. We all freaking need them, every single one of us, whether you reach to a higher power, or whether you reach to your sponsor or you reach to some other friends. However, I also want to throw this in. Those that we reach out to are those that understand,
Yes.
because my wife used to come to me with some of the stuff, and we finally got to the point where I'm like, thank you for coming to me with this, but I don't get this. I don't understand it. Do you have someone in the recovery community that you can call? Do you have your sponsor, or do you know somebody else, that you can call and talk to? Because all I know is my input, the way I see it. I'm just going to put more fuel on the flame. I'm not going to help you, right? Because I'm
Right.
not seeing it the same way that she's seeing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is once you put the drinks and drugs down, you really get this like kind of bird's eye view of like who you are, where you've been, what you've done. And to think you wouldn't need help would just be ignorant,
Mhm.
in my opinion. Because, sorry, my dogs are.
Oh, that's okay.
It's just, I just don't. I needed help. I had to surrender. I needed help this whole time. And that's my go-to is to get it because I love that I now have enough humility to ask for it. And it's not, that's the thing is like I have utilized that tool in every area of my life. My daughter's disabled. Okay. I knew nothing about arthrogryposis multiplex congenita, AMC for short. Let's just say AMC. I knew that her joints didn't bend, and that was it. But you know what? Learning in the program and recovery has taught me that when you don't know nothing, that's okay. But we're going to ask, we're going to figure it out together. And I just started becoming friends with all these Facebook groups. Same thing with her autism. I started asking questions. I started to wanting to know more. I just started doing research. I started to try to meet people that had already done what I was about to face. Um, that's a terrific tool. And I don't have to do things alone. I don't have to carry the weight of being alone anymore. Like, they say only an idiot knows everything. And I really, really like that because, yeah, there's a lot of things that I face sober that I would get high over a million times over back in the day. I would have just gotten high over it. And I really would have felt valid in it. There's not a legitimate good enough reason right now for me to pick up drugs and alcohol at this point. I have faced enough of things after the storm of addiction without picking up. To pick up right now would be just redundant. It wouldn't make any sense. It just wouldn't because I have faced enough fears and heartbreak and there's nothing that I can't face.
Yeah.
But it's just getting through those situations completely sober. That's, and there's you gotta have some tact and you gotta have some support people. I don't know what would you say like the hardest thing you faced in sobriety was? Like for you? And like how did you get through that?
Oh man. At first it was basically figuring out who I was as an individual,
Mm,
you know,
yes.
because when someone basically is honest enough with you and says that you're known as a liar and a manipulator and you call bullshit on them, and then you finally sit with yourself and you realize, holy shit, they're completely right. That's exactly who I am, and not knowing the direction to even go. That was extremely hard for me because I didn't. I mean, I spent 8 years snorting cocaine and drinking every freaking weekend for 8 years in a row, and now all of a sudden I'm stopping this. And what do I do now with my time? What do I do to release all the pressure from work and other things that's happening in life? I don't know what to do. And that was tough. And then as years went, here it is comes 2025. And this was back in 2029 when all this other stuff hit, losing my leg, right? I mean, I had my coaches reach out to me, Dave and Susan Kenny, who I mentioned at the beginning of the show, and Dave's like, have you been thinking about using? And I said, yeah, it popped in my head a couple times. Absolutely. It popped in my head a couple times. And he's like, well, what kept you from doing it? And it's like what you just said, Amber. It's I've worked too hard to get myself to this point. I don't want to fall back into that same pattern because
Mm,
it wasn't getting me anywhere in my life. It really wasn't. I was comfortable being stuck, so comfortable. And I needed to, what happened in my life, it needed to happen to me to get me to where I could open up my eyes and say, there's a different chapter, there's a different you. And I'm so grateful that it happened. I mean, it's crazy. I lost a 24-year career. However, the people that God has put in my life right now is just amazing. I mean, just amazing. I could do like you. I could pick up the phone anytime and call in somebody, say, "Hey man, I just need someone to listen, not talk, just listen." And I
yeah.
probably 10 or a dozen or even more people that I can call that would just sit and listen. So that was the hard part for me. It really was. And then 2025 challenged me, losing my leg. And then 4 weeks after that, losing Janan. It was a big challenge right there, man. Holy cow. Um, there were, if I could have drove at that time, there was probably a couple times I probably would have headed to the liquor store or somewhere to go find something because
Yeah.
the challenge was just eating at me. It was one of those things like a woodpecker just constantly just picking at my head, just
Yeah.
constantly going, right? And again, if it wasn't for, of course, not being able to drive and then also using my tools, which you talked about just a little bit ago, to get myself to go, wait a minute, wait a minute. All I got to do is do something else. I got to get my mind off of this. And once I do, it helps. And it really does help. It gets me to a point to where that woodpecker's going away. It still may come back and tap a couple times, but it's not as long and you're able to handle
Yeah.
it a lot better, right? And it's because of the work that we put into it.
Yes. So I have a question. What is your audience? What is like the what is your audience? What's your target? Like who watches your podcast? Is it people that have long-term sobriety? Is it newcomers? Is it people that are just hanging on, white knuckling it, that need inspiration? Or is it all of the above?
It is all of the above, as
Okay.
well as people on the other side, right? Because they're wanting to
Hmm.
understand more about it. And to be able to have individuals like yourself and so many of my other guests come on and talk about, hey, this is what I'll just put it bluntly, this is what fucking life is like, right? It's not
Yeah.
easy. right? So yeah, and the white knuckling. How many of us do the white knuckling? I mean, I watched Janan do that so much, that white knuckling stuff, and and bless her heart, she thought she had that strength that she could do it, that she could do it, she could do it on her own, and again, as we mentioned, we cannot do it on our own at all, period.
Hmm. There's a I can't think of his name. He's a priest. And we used to watch his videos. It's really old videos. I'm talking like from the 70s, from the 80s. Um, and he's a priest, Father Martin. I don't know if you've ever watched any Father Martin or if any of you guys have ever watched him, but go look him up. He's fabulous with he does work with addiction. But he said addiction is the only disease where you will get up every day and get in the boxing ring with the worldwide champion and get your ass handed to you, and then go back with your lumps and think of how you're going to whoop them tomorrow. Even it's funny because it's like, oh my God, that was me. I would get in the boxing ring with this champion. Like this disease has wiped out so many people, but I'm going to get in there every day and I got a new plot, a new plan, how I'm going to whoop it. But until I just be like, all right, I'm not even getting in the ring anymore. I'm all done with this. I'm all done. I'm not getting in the ring. And then it's like, but for some insane reason, your disease tells you you can whoop it. And it's like, just go back in that ring. Just go back in that ring. Go this. And it's like, that's the insanity of alcoholism and addiction is something in us just wants to make ourselves different. But this disease has killed so many people. And we just keep trying to prove that it isn't going to kill us, and it don't make no damn sense. It's crazy too, because the reason why I asked you about what your audience is because I believe that there's pre-steps before you take big steps. Especially if you're like doing goal setting, right? So like your goal might be completely to be abstinent. And it might look like at first you're only doing heroin twice a week, and then it might look like you do Suboxone, and then it might look like Vivitrol, and then it might look like abstinence. Like there's so many steps, there's not a one size fits all for recovery. There's
Hmm.
just not.
Correct.
And I guess I just wanted to touch on the step zeros that it took me to get here. I don't know why. That's just like really on my heart because it took a lot of courage to do some of the things. Everybody's like, get a sponsor. Okay. How do I muster up the courage to walk into a room full of people and say, hey, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an addict, can you help me? Because there was a step in between that step to get to that. And then once I do have a sponsor, now what do I do? I don't, because this is how I felt. You have to realize I feel like the bottom of a footprint. I walk into these meetings, I have no clothes, I have no pride, I'm completely embarrassed. This disease has thoroughly whooped my ass. I have no self-esteem. My worth is in the gutter. And we just say things like, we'll get a sponsor, do this, go to a meeting, talk to these person, ask for help. But there's all these little steps that it takes, courage. And I would walk into these meetings and I would see these beautiful women with their hair done and their Coach bags, and they have a boyfriend and a nice car outside, and I'm just like, whoo, I'm just overwhelmed. I would feel this shame and guilt would come up, scare me right out of it. So some of the steps that I would take too or some of the pre-steps that I would tell people to do is, um, give yourself some affirmations, talk yourself into doing one tiny thing a day until you build up some confidence. Confidence is defined in life coaching, is defined as being able to feel any emotion and not being afraid to feel that emotion. That's all it means to be confident. Because people are like, oh, you're born with it, you do this. It's a muscle, something you do, and you're gonna need that first. You're gonna need the confidence it takes to ask for the help and to do the things. And it's just where you gotta really get comfortable with just being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Sometimes it looks like we pray for the words, we pray for the courage, we pray for the confidence, but there's many different people out there that may not believe in a higher power. And what do? Well, what I would suggest to those people is I would suggest that you get comfortable feeling all the feelings. I would suggest that you just recognize that this is going to be uncomfortable, but it's not going to last forever and that you can do it.
Yeah.
You can go up to them people, you can ask for help. You know, people don't tell you that. They're just like, go do this and go do that, go to a meeting or, 90 and 90 and yada, yada, yada. And, get on your hands and knees and pray. And some of us don't even know what we're praying to. Just like it's just wild to me that I love the people that over explain when I got in recovery. They're like, so what you're going to do is you're going to do this. And I'm like, well, how do you do that? Well, how do you do that? I love to over explain things because there's never a stupid question. And a lot of us don't even know what to ask.
Right. Well, how would
We
you?
don't.
Because that's
You
all.
don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. You're stepping into a whole new room of nothingness that you know of.
It's so scary. It is so scary. And people are like, well, you weren't scared. I used to hear this all the time from like old timers. You weren't scared to drink that bottle to excess. You weren't scared to go into that trap house. Yes, I was. Yes, I was. You think
Hmm.
the first time I walked into a crack house, I just walked in, hey, how you doing? I'm here to get crack. No, it was, hey, can you tell, you had somebody show you around the place. You had a sponsor, and it took courage to even ask for that. I don't think it wasn't that way for me, is what I'm trying to say is I didn't start out with a needle on my arm. I didn't start out with a pipe on my lips. It was a slow build. I told you about how I started sniffing glue and I started doing this and once I would get that alcohol in me, it would give me that liquid courage. But don't think I went up in that trap house or that crack house and just walked up to the biggest dope boy I know and said, "Hey, I'm Amber. Nice to meet you. Would you sell me some crack cocaine?" That's not what happened. That's not what happened. I had to get some liquid courage. You know what I mean? And the
Yeah.
same thing applies with recovery. Only it's going to look different on how we pick that courage up today. And I just love that I have an opportunity to express that because I think a lot of people just assume that we're supposed to just fly straight. It's supposed to feel normal. You're not supposed to be scared, and that's just not real.
No. And thank you for sharing that. I'm so glad that you did and asking who the audience was so you could get that out, right? Because that touches
Yeah.
so many different levels. I mean, that is so wide range. I've heard people say before, all you got to do is make that first step. And I
Mhm.
correct them. I'm like, well, that's not quite true. There's one more thing you got to do before you make that step, and that's like, what's that? And it's like make that decision, because you cannot
Yes.
take that first step till you make that first decision, right? You have that thing between our brains and the neurons when it's firing. You've got that gap. That gap is one of the most important parts right there, because that gap is going to decide which way you go. Whether you say, fuck it, I'm going to go use, this is too hard, it's too uncomfortable, or fuck it, this is too hard, this is too uncomfortable, I'm going to go this direction.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that fine line, and I don't feel that a lot of people on the other side understand that, and that is one of the things that I hope this show does, is help get rid of the stigma. Our
Mhm.
Healing Utah Success Summit that we've been doing, gosh, we're planning our sixth one right now. That is one of the things that we're really pushing, is to help get rid of that stigma as well, so people understand. you know um, I'll share a little bit about something that helped me. Is I used to go downtown Salt Lake too, and I'd see the unsheltered and I'd see the addicts down there, and under my breath or even out loud, I'd say, "Get a fucking job, you low lives. What the hell's wrong with you? Come on, there's people looking for, there's help wanted signs all over the place and blah, 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 blah." And then addiction comes into my life, and I see how it affects everything. And I understand that there's a story behind it. You didn't wake up at 9 years of age and just go, "Yeah, I'm just going to go get high and I'm going to be a professional addict. That's what I'm going to be. I'm going to screw everything, lose everything, just miss a whole life just so I can be an addict." And now I
Yeah.
go downtown and I see individuals and I'm like, what's their story? My gosh,
Yeah.
I wonder what's happened in their life to get them to this point, because I know it's not the drugs and alcohol or whatever it may be. Something happened to them that got them to that point. And we get ourselves in so deep. I mean, look at all the years that you fought. You got in so deep, and then just like we don't know how to handle our emotions, and we don't even know how to handle getting out of the life that we've dug for ourselves, and not knowing the directions to go. And so I'm very grateful that you shared that, Amber. Thank you.
Thank you for understanding it, 'cause some people don't. Some people don't get that. They're very much of the mindset that you were speaking on about watching the homeless. It's like, it's just like when people are depressed, they're like, smile.
Yeah.
It's like, why didn't I think of that?
Right.
Yeah, it helped me so much. I'll just get right to it. Like, it's so when you don't know what you don't know. You know what I mean? And it's funny. Um, but I think that there's these solid like few things that we all do. Now, for me, there's like three or four things that I will always do, and they may look different depending on situation. And I feel like everybody gets their core beliefs back and and I don't think that we change. I think as humans, we just let go of what isn't us and we become more of who we're meant to be, who we really are over time. People don't really change so much as they do just become more of who they were meant to be, in my opinion. And that's the way it's been for me. So I find myself when I'm struggling too hard, even now at 6 years, and I've got so much more to learn and so much life left to live. Um, I just find that when I'm presenting, when I'm trying to impress, when I'm doing certain things and I'm not being myself, that's when I struggle the most. Because that means I'm holding on to an idea and I'm letting fear operate. I have to really get out of that fear because it shows up for me a lot. And I don't just struggle with alcoholism. I also have mental health issues. I have borderline personality disorder. I have a lot of things that just show up. But I have to let my authentic, my true, deep to my core self run the driving, in the driver's seat. I have to let them. And it's been a struggle because you'll have your ego want to pop in the driver's seat and be like, you can't treat me like that. And I've had people do wrong to me. I've had friends relapse. I've had friends die. And I've literally just been like, ooh, we got to get this together. And I don't control them. And what can I do for them? And setting boundaries with people and all these uncomfortable things that nobody prepares you for when you're, you know, 1 month sober. When you're 1 month sober, your biggest fear is that bottle, that drink, that dope boy you might run into. Is there going to be liquor at this restaurant? Can I go here? At 6 years, 5 years, 4 years, even 3 years, the feelings are still there, but the problems look different. I always thought I was going to be fighting this disease and drugs and alcohol. And it turns out I'm just really, really just trying to do my best, feel my emotions, and make conscious, logical, helpful decisions based on people I love in my life as well. I'm a mother. I have to make the best decisions I can make, not only for myself to continue to be a good mother, but for my children. When I was an addict, I didn't think about my children. What was there to think about? I didn't have custody.
Yeah.
I lost custody. I've just gotten custody of them back. I'd say this happened in October, November. So I've had custody of them. They've been living with me, but it took me 5 years to get custody of my kids. Over 5 years. It was 5 years before my mother would even discuss it. Because this wasn't my first time losing them. This was my second time losing them to the courts. That's not, that wasn't a thing for me in addiction. I didn't know how to be a mother. I was legally not even allowed to be their mother. That those rights had been taken from me. Rightfully so as well, because I was a danger.
Yeah.
So it's like now I have all these decisions and it's not just me anymore. And it's a lot. And that's why I love that my favorite tool is others. Because there's somebody out there who's gotten their kids back after losing them twice. I'm not alone here. There's somebody out there that doesn't know how to get her kids up and ready for school because she's never been sober and had to do it because her mom's had to do it. My mom took care of my kids for these last years. I never got up with my kids to go to school. What does that look like? What do
Yeah.
we do? Like just these mundane little things that everyone seems to take for granted are just kind of it's like everyone got this secret book to how to live life, and I didn't. And I was too high to even notice that they were trying to give it to me. I was like, I don't need that. I was too busy at the pawn shop trying to get off some stolen jewelry. You know what I mean? I wasn't paying attention to any of this life stuff that
Yeah.
was happening all around me. I was consumed with this addiction, you know? So now it's like, what does it look like to be a lady of dignity and respect? What does it look like to be a mother? What does it look like to be a spouse and a friend and a daughter? What does that look like? How do you do that? It's just that's where that you can't be afraid to ask the questions. You have to work yourself up the courage to ask. You have to watch people. You have to see what you don't like, what fits with you, what doesn't fit with you. Get to know yourself, study yourself, talk to yourself, take yourself on dates, really fall in love with yourself, and
Mhm.
really see what you want and how do we get there. And that's what I've been doing. And it's been a journey. It's really been a journey. It's really, and I got to be okay with what I see because that's the ABCs of me. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's the Amber that I was 6 years ago would probably want to beat this Amber up. Be like, you're weird. Like, why are you watching Disney movies? That's weird.
Yeah.
Why are you listening to show tunes? Why do you like musicals? We're a thug. We're on the mean streets over here. We don't live like that. That's weird. You're weird. You know, people that were like me when I was out there in the streets, those were marks. Those were preppy, weird, uppity, yuppie people.
Yeah. They
And
think
now
they're
I'm,
better than us, right?
yeah, they think they're better than us with their Starbucks and their yoga classes. And I'm, I judged them because I was too afraid of how much work it would take to be one of them.
Yeah. Matt, thank you for sharing all that so much. And while you was sharing this, something came into my mind that a couple of weeks
Yeah.
ago I was down south, to St. George. It's about 350 something miles south of Salt Lake City, and I was down there to support my grandkids in a soccer tournament. I was talking to my daughter, and she goes, "Dad, I'm going to send you this podcast. You got to listen to this podcast." A gentleman by the name of Jay Shetty was interviewing Madonna. Now, I wasn't a big
Okay.
Madonna fan back in the days. However, who she is today, I was very, very impressed with this woman. Very impressed. She tapped into her spiritual stuff. She got into what they call Kabbalah. And Kabbalah really helps. It's not a religion, but it helps the spiritual side of things. And something Madonna said that that really came to mind when you were sharing your story. She goes, at one point in our life, we have to learn how to release our spiritual that's inside of us, or our selves that's inside of us, right? Because this is just our outer shell. We have something that's inside of us that's greater. And that really resonated with me. And I thought, oh my gosh, that just means so much. And the reason why is what you just shared. You got to a point when you're in your life where you finally said, I got to release this. And
Yeah.
we release it all the time, right? Doesn't mean that we release it and it's totally gone and we bring in this new one and it's all better and it's all good. It's just the next step for us, right? To be able, because I started thinking about it on the way home when I was listening to it, because it's about a 2 hour podcast. And I thought, my gosh, I have released so many of my inner spirits so many times in me. It's like one comes in and it gets me through to the next point, and then I realize something, right? And then I have to learn how to release that one to allow another one to come in. And and I think with everything that you just shared, that's what you've been doing in your whole journey. You've allowed yourself to go, okay, I've gotten myself to this point. Holy shit, something else has come up. How do I do it? Where do I go? I'm scared to death. I don't know which direction to go. I'm going to make a phone call or I'm going to shoot a text or whatever it may be. And then go, oh, that's where. So then you release this other part and you bring in this other section to get you to that next step, right? It's this it's this constant battle of learning how to grow. And my version is we're all here to do that. We're all here to grow and advance. And something else that she said too in there that really got me. She goes, we have all been put on this earth to receive. So
Hmm.
so we can share, so we can give.
Nice. I
And that
like that.
isn't that something else? So I got God bumps over here. And the reason why
Yeah.
yeah, the God bumps is because I'm like, that is so true. That is so true. Now I'm not talking religion. I'm talking spiritual stuff. Like when Jesus came, he picked 12 of the most perfect individuals ever to help spread the word. right? And it's so they could grow and learn. And one of my guests, and I've said this so many times on my show, one of my guests from 3, 4 years ago, who I interviewed, she's out of Colorado, and she talked about how one of her friends told her there are those that God called back home because he knows that their battle is just too strong for them. And he calls them back home to get them out of that discomfort. There are other individuals like yourself, Amber, and so many of my other guests who have been left behind, and those are the angels. And those are the angels who they have received, now they're to share. So now you're out there sharing what you shared on this show. You just shared a huge experience. You got very vulnerable and shared what life's been like for you, and said, "Hey man, at times it's not been easy because I'm a mother and I've got to take care of my kids, and I don't, I've worked too hard to get to this point." Somebody out there will hear this show that is at that point in their life where now what you just shared is going to help them, and then that continues, like, so it's like that domino effect, and it just continues
Exactly.
it continues to go and go and go and go, and we don't even know how far it goes. It's like a tsunami. It starts out this little wave, right, and then next thing you know it's
Yeah.
so huge, and we don't even know how huge it is because we're still that little wave, if that's making sense.
No, it's crystal clear. I completely agree. And you don't know this, but I'll share this with you. I prayed right before I came on here. Just God used me as an instrument to help somebody else to be of service, because that's what I always pray when I do podcasts, when I speak, when I have to break hard news to somebody, when I do an AA lead, but just um, because that clears my head of any wrong motives or I didn't come on here to look cool or to
Mhm.
do anything. I can honestly say that when I got to clear my motives out. I'm still a very selfish person. I still have that primitive brain trying to run the show. I
Yeah.
just do. That's just the way I'm made like that. I'm just made like that. So I have to just accept that. Um, and I love that because I know that through life coaching, I've learned I don't get to choose whether I'm worthy. I am inherently worthy. I am here. That is a reason enough. I am worthy. And the more that I know that, the more that I can spread that. And that's what I want others to know too. Like, it's not up for debate. You're here, you're worthy. That's it. End of story.
Mhm.
You're inherently worthy. You inherited it. There's a reason why you're here. Whether it's Allah or Buddha or Jehovah or Muhammad or whoever you believe in, it don't matter. You are worthy. You're here. That's enough. And it's wild to me because just knowing that, just using that as an affirmation, has been a game changer for me, because that's why I used to use so much and drink so much. Who cares where I'm at? Who cares if I die? Who
Yeah.
cares if I ruin my body or I run off the road because I did too much fentanyl? Who cares? Nobody cares about me. I'm not worth a fuck. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. Who cares? I'm a bottom of a footprint. I'm not a good mom. I'm not a good human. I'm not a good lady. I'm not a good woman, sister. I'm nothing. I completely believe that. So the more that I can flip that narrative and operate from that point, the more I can give others,
Yeah.
because that is the goal. That is the goal. Because to keep what I have, I must give it away.
Absolutely. And it's none of ours to keep, right? And Rebecca
No,
mentions that in her podcast. I'll message that to you. I'll send that over to you.
I
So
love that.
yeah,
Yes.
so yeah, it is. We are just the vessel. We are here to share everything, right? And
Mhm.
when we take it as our own, it's not our own. Absolutely not. We're just the vessel to help spread it out there and get it out there. And
Yes.
I'm glad that you brought that up because that is so true. So freaking true.
Yes. I and there's just one main idea that I would like to just if people are listening to this and they hear nothing else, if they take nothing else from me, I would just like them to know that being your true, genuine, authentic self is going to open you up to every blessing that was yours and only yours to claim. Um, and that has been my biggest goal, motivator, confidence. That's where I've gained all my confidence, is just really from my heart believing that. There's a reason why I'm here. I'm inherently worthy, and somebody out there needs me. They don't need, me to copy three other people and create this phony image of me. They need real, raw me.
Hmm.
And they're out there looking for me, and I have to get that. I have to prepare myself and make myself a vessel and to be of service to that person because somebody needs my story.
Yeah. And they will find you. The ones that are searching will find you, right?
Yes, they will.
And it can
Yes,
happen, it
they
can
will.
happen anywhere. It can happen
It
anywhere.
definitely
Seriously.
can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I'm getting a cat up on my lap.
I see a
He's
tail, like a piece of
tail.
a tail because you have your background. Well, yeah, and that's what I love about coaching is because I believe everything you need is in you and you are inherently worthy. People come and they shit on you with their own stuff and their trauma. And I don't think people just intentionally go out there to hurt others. I think it's trauma. It's just them putting their stuff on you. And somehow you start to lose that worthiness. It starts to get blocked. We're going to unblock it. We're going to get you in your worth. And I want you to just be your happy, true, genuine self. It's all in you. Anything you want, anything you desire, it's in you. You just have to unblock yourself from it. And you have to become more and more of who you were meant to be. Let go of all that old shit, that stuff that people threw on top of you because they didn't know what else to do with it. I'm talking parents, lovers,
Hmm.
people that didn't even know they hurt you. You know what I mean? So that's why I really like the coaching because I'm in a unique place to be able to help people with that, just as I've been helped with it. It's really it's really interesting, fascinating, nurturing, and awesome to watch someone come into their own.
Oh my gosh, that is one of the coolest things I like watching. I had a client.
Yes.
I had a client that one of the first ones that I worked with, and I've had only a couple. I'm really starting now to push to where I'm going to start hopefully getting more clients. I'm really going to start pushing my coaching. I haven't in the past almost 2 years, but
Really?
oh yeah, yeah, it's something that I really wanted to do, and then I don't know, something just kind of hit in me, and I think a lot of it was, to be honest, was my fear, right? Going, gosh, can I really help someone? Can I
I
really
swear to
do this,
God, I have the
right?
same fear. I have the
So
same fear.
yeah, so I'm talking to my coaches, and my coaches are going, Al, you're already doing it. It's like, how am I doing it? They're like, well, you do it every week on your show. You're already
Yep.
coaching people. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
So I've had that fear, which I say all the time. I need to listen to what I even say is when something scares you that bad, that's telling you you're supposed to do it because it's the opposition keeping you from doing what you're supposed to do.
Yes.
And so now I'm really pushing towards. I'm already starting to put things together. I come up with a name. I don't know if I'm going to stick with it, but talking about what our title is after the storm.
Hmm.
My title is Into the Storm Coaching.
Into the storm. Okay, that's
And the
different.
re the reason why is, and I don't know if you know this, Amber, but buffalo, and a lot of my listeners hear me say this a lot, but I love it. Buffalo is the only animal on this planet that when a storm is coming, they walk towards it, not away from it, or they don't hide from it. And the reason why, because it gets them through it quicker.
Oh, okay. Bam.
Right? So,
I
so,
love that.
so if a storm's coming, animals go away from it, but eventually the storm's following them, right? And it stays over them longer. Or if they hide from it, it can, who knows how long, but when they go towards it, they pass each other. They go through it so much quicker. So I'm getting close to having my original socket for my prosthetic leg. My uncle,
Okay.
photographer, he found a picture of a buffalo, one single buffalo walking towards a storm in the distance, and you can see the storm in the distance. That's what I'm going to have put on my prosthetic, on my socket. So when I'm having my
That is
days,
cool.
I can look down and go, you know what? I'm going to go towards the storm. I'm going to head straight for it because I'll get through it so much quicker instead of running
Yes.
away from it, which you and I both, and so many other people, we do our best to run away from all these challenges, which is the storm. We do our best
Yes.
to hide from it, right? So we don't have to feel it, or hopefully it doesn't see us, or it doesn't get, we don't get a raindrop on us, you know. However, when we go into it, we get so much, we learn so much from it, and that's what gets us stronger. So every time we go through a storm, we're getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Doesn't mean is a storm ever going to bother us again? Oh, hell no, because the storms are going to get stronger.
Yeah.
However, it helps us to where we now have certain tools to get through it a little bit easier to where we don't fall.
Every time it gets easier.
Yeah.
I love that. So what, so you're starting a new, you're starting a new coaching like opportunity? Like what do you, because like I know like for me, I have like a website and doing my own coaching thing. And if anyone wants to talk to me about it later, it is Lifted Life Coaching.
Lift it.
And Lifted Life Coaching, yes. I have a website. If you have any questions, I am also on Facebook, just Amber Rabold. I'm just who I am. So what exactly are you going to be doing life coaching? Are you going to be doing addiction coaching? What are you doing?
Yeah, so I'm certified as an international crisis and recovery. And it's based off of what our my sponsor, Emergo Academy. It's all about the brain first approach. So we don't sit down and talk about the crisis or the addiction. We just have a conversation, right? And my training of asking certain questions helps the person think of their own thing, right? They actually start healing themselves. It's not like a therapist where a therapist leads you to where they think you need to go, right? Where you're just allow the person to start figuring things out on their own. And that's what I loved about the coaching when I took it, because it really started
Yeah.
opening my eyes. We used to do these mock things, but that's what I'm looking at doing is I need to get a website up myself. It'll be my own individual stuff. I've had some people go, hey, maybe look at doing some groups, where you allow so many people and
Yeah.
once a week you do a group session and it helps. At least that'll get you started where you start feeling more comfortable about your skills and different things. And I know I have them, right? I know I have
Yeah.
them there because my first client, as I was going to, she worked as a dancer and in the sex industry.
Okay.
And we sat down and we're having our conversations, and this is maybe our third or fourth session. And I don't remember how it went, but then all of a sudden she just went, "Oh my hell, Al. Oh my hell. I get it. I finally get it." And I'm like, "Well, what was it that you got?" And she goes, "I just want to be seen for who I am today."
Yeah.
All my life, guys would hire me because I was the candy on their arm, and as long as I gave them sex afterwards and they'd take me out, I was the pretty girl and, I was a subject. I wasn't me. I wasn't a woman. I was a subject. I was an item. And to
Yeah.
see that she got that, she got tears in her eyes and it wasn't good on my part, but I have such huge emotions. All of a sudden, I got tears in my eyes that I'm like, going, oh my gosh, she figured something out, right? It was so cool to see this
Yeah.
woman just bloom and light up, going, I
That
just
is
want to be seen who I am today, and it was so cool.
top tier.
Hmm.
Top tier. You said you're emotional. Are you Cancer?
I am. How the hell?
Cancer, because I instantly connected with you. I just love no. So I'm a Capricorn, and we're polar opposites, and that's why we're just. I get it. I
Yeah,
get it. Yeah. No, Cancer. Cancer is my favorite sign, by the way. So that's a good thing.
that is a
You
good thing.
guys are just so in tune with your emotions. I love that. I love it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's something that I've had to learn how to release and let go. Not saying
Yeah.
right? It's to where I was brought up the old fashioned way. Don't you dare cry. I'll give you something to cry about. You're a man. You're supposed to hold your emotions. Don't you dare show that you're weak. Don't you do, and not knocking anybody because that's just how they were taught, right? That's how they were brought.
Yeah.
It took me until my very first public talk that I did back in 2020. And it was
Hmm.
right before C-19 hit. And I got really emotional. Someone actually grabbed their napkin from their table and come over and brought it up to me and so I could wipe the tears off. And a couple of my lady friends come up to me after and they're like, "Oh my gosh, Al, thank you for sharing. That was awesome." And I said, "Yeah, I screwed up though. I was crying, and it made myself look weak." And they go, "Al, I don't know if you noticed, but you had everybody crying out there." And she says, "Don't you ever dare stop, because that means people saw your emotions. They knew it came from your heart. You wasn't bullshitting them. It came from your heart." And
Mm.
then when my wife saw me do a public talk for the very first time, and I got emotional, and on the way home, she goes, "I don't know how you feel about crying." And I says, it's just these emotions come out. And she goes, "Well, if it helps you, I think you're sexy when you cry." So I'm like, well, hell then, I'm crying every single time.
Let's try. Well, honestly, vulnerability is a way of strength because to put yourself out there takes courage. So I admire when people can just be themselves because anybody can be fake and act like they're not human and they have no issues or problems. But the more human you allow yourself to be, the more vulnerable you are, the more that you connect and help others to be themselves. And that to me is true courage. So I appreciate that.
Well,
Yes, I
yeah.
definitely do. So.
Well, again, thank you for your time. I mean, we're gone over a little over an hour, which I don't care, but I want to respect your time as well. But is there
I
any, is there any last thing, or a share of hope, or a share of strength, or I don't know, is there something that your spirit is talking to you about that you'd like to share before we sign off?
You're worth it. You're worthy. Don't ever think you're bothering somebody because you're not. You're worth it. You're worthy. You always was. You're inherently worthy. I'll just leave you with that
I
because
love it.
that's self-explanatory.
Yeah, it is. Most definitely. And so many of us do feel like we're not worth it. So thank you for sharing that. Well, Amber, thank you, my dear, so much for coming on the show for a second time.
Anytime.
It was so great to see you again. And know I'm always here, right? And I know you're always
Yes.
there. And I'll shoot you over that podcast with Madonna so you can listen to it. It's really,
Yeah.
I've listened to it over a dozen times and I still listen to it because I'm still picking
Oh,
up on
wow.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really,
That's
really good.
nice.
But again, thank you for your time. And I just want to say, hey, thank you again to Emergo Academy. Thank you guys for sponsors, Dave and Susan Kenny. I love you guys. Just not as my coaches and sponsors. I love you guys as friends. You guys are amazing. Thank you to all our past guests and future guests. And most of all, thank you to our listeners. You guys are the freaking best. You guys are the ones that keep this show going. And it's so cool when I go somewhere and someone comes up and asks if I'm Al, and they say, "I've heard your show, I've listened to your show, and this so and so guest touched my life." And that's the reason why I do it right there. So again, I love y'all. You take care. Have an amazing, amazing day. And we're going to leave you with this as we do at the end of every show. Remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.